Trump, prophecy, and Iran, the religious narrative behind the war. Welcome to the Politica UK InfoPod. Today's question is not simply about missiles or strategy. It is about belief, and the powerful religious narrative that some of Donald Trump's supporters believe lies behind the war with Iran. In recent days, reports have surfaced suggesting that some US military commanders have framed the conflict in explicitly religious terms. Complaints from service members allege that officers described the war as part of God's divine plan, even invoking the biblical book of Revelation and the idea that President Trump had been anointed by Jesus to begin the conflict. Whether or not those claims reflect official policy, they point to a deeper and very real political force inside American politics: Christian nationalism. For many evangelical Christians in the United States, the Middle East holds a special place in biblical prophecy. Some interpretations of Scripture, particularly the books of Ezekiel and Revelation, describe a future war involving Israel and Persia, the ancient name often associated with modern Iran. For believers who hold these interpretations, events in the Middle East can appear not just geopolitical, but prophetic. This belief has been present in American politics for decades, but it gained significant influence during the Trump presidency. Trump's rise to power was strongly supported by white evangelical voters. In the 2016 and 2020 elections, evangelical Christians formed one of the most loyal voting blocs behind him. Many influential evangelical leaders portrayed Trump as a political instrument chosen by God to protect Israel and confront its enemies. Some supporters even used the phrase anointed by God, drawing comparisons to the biblical Persian king Cyrus, a non-Jewish ruler who, according to Scripture, helped restore Israel. In that narrative, Trump becomes a modern political figure serving a divine purpose. That framing has shaped how some supporters interpret the conflict with Iran. To them, the confrontation is not simply about nuclear weapons, regional power, or military alliances. It is part of a much larger spiritual story involving the fate of Israel and the unfolding of biblical prophecy. Critics warn that this kind of thinking can be dangerous. When wars are framed in religious terms, as battles between good and evil, or as events foretold by Scripture, compromise becomes harder, diplomacy becomes suspect, and military action can take on the language of destiny. In secular democracies, including the United States, the military is supposed to operate under civilian authority and constitutional law rather than religious doctrine. But the influence of religious narratives in politics is not new. Throughout history, leaders on many sides of conflicts have invoked faith to rally support, inspire soldiers, or frame wars as morally necessary. What makes the current moment unusual is how openly some political figures and commentators are connecting modern military action with ancient prophetic language. For supporters, this language reinforces the idea that history is moving toward a larger purpose. For critics, it raises troubling questions about whether religious belief is influencing decisions that carry enormous human and geopolitical consequences. The reality, as always, is more complex. The war with Iran is being driven by a mix of factors: security concerns, regional alliances, domestic politics, and military strategy. But the religious dimension is part of the story as well. And understanding that dimension may help explain why the conflict is framed so differently by different audiences. For some, it is simply another war. For others, it is a moment that appears to echo ancient texts written thousands of years ago. And that difference in perception may shape not only how the war is fought, but how it is understood. This InfoPod was brought to you by Politica UK.